Michael, welcome aboard to the show. So happy to have you today.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here, Ari. Thank you.
I'm gonna shoot you straight into the past, 25 years more or less.
Let's do it, man.
You're about to join the Marine Corps. What is going through your head? Is this like, what the hell am I doing? Or is this like, yes, I've been wanting this my whole life?
Hell no, it absolutely was not that, man. For me, when I thought about it, I was on the brinks of either trying to go to college or trying to join the Marine Corps, and a recruiter grabbed me coming out of the lunch hall, and he was like, "Hey, man, you're gonna be a Marine." And literally, man, we spoke, Staff Sergeant Noda, and he told me all of the great things, none of the bad things about the Marine Corps, man. And from there, man, my path was set to join the Marine Corps and go and serve this country, man.
What was your first response? Like, I want whatever you're having. Like, you're tripping good. Let's try
No,
that out.
no, it wasn't like that, but it was more so, man. For me, coming from where I'm from in Miami, man, it's not too much things that's going on for me
Mm,
personally and stuff like that. And it was like you get to travel the world, you get to
right.
see girls, you get to go party, you get to make some money and all these other things. And I was like, hell yeah, sign me up for that, man.
So he sold you the good life. What was reality like? So you're in service, all his promises, what was true, what wasn't, and what surprised you?
Yeah, so here's the true reality of the Marine Corps, man. You get to join a brotherhood, a fraternity that is lifelong, and it's something that I cherish to this day, and I will for the rest of my life. Joining the Marine Corps, obviously signing in and swearing in, and then going through that entire process where started in Miami, Florida, got on the bus, got on the plane, and we made it to Paris Island, South Carolina. And we're coming in through there, tell everybody to put their heads down, and it's middle of the night, dark as hell. And then driller starts to get on there, like, get off of my bus, get off of my bus, yelling at everybody, telling everybody to get. And now you're just scared shitless because he was like, what the hell did I just sign up for? There's a lot of moments in my life in the Marine Corps where I was like, what the hell did I just sign up for? So we go through that process and they're yelling at us, and then we get on the yellow footprints. And if you want to talk about an HR process, we get on footprints. Then they take us through the line of getting your haircut, getting your uniforms issued, your boots, your cleaning, your hygiene, all of these different things. And we go through that process, and then it's kind of like the initiation process where they kind of like break you down. So you feel like you're little to nothing, nobody, and all these other things. But it's strategically put in place where from there where they break you down, they build you up. And I went through that entire process, man, for 3 months where I thought it was going to be the hardest thing of my life, but turned out to make a man out of me, turned out to make me a better leader, better person. And graduating from there, man, came back and we graduated, and I graduated as one of the squad leaders in my company with a Kilo company. And from there, man, I went to Marine combat training, which was also in North Carolina. And this was around 1999. So this is when like Y2K was out and everybody was like, thought it was going to be the end of the world. But anyhow, obviously that didn't turn out to be like that. But when I got there, training did not start yet. So I had an opportunity to be on funeral detail. And this really showed me what the Marine Corps was really all about, because during that waiting period, I was there for about a month and a half, and I had opportunity to serve with the team that do the 21 gun salute. And I had a chance to like bury some of our veterans that have served before me. So I got a chance to hear the stories of men that served before me, either Vietnam, you name all of these different wars during some of those eras and through some of those times, which gave me a greater appreciation of what the military was about. And always, whenever I seen movies, one of the coolest things you could ever do is like shoot the guns during 21 gun salute and like hear the trumpets play. It's so emotional. And then having
Yeah.
the opportunity to carry the flags over to family members that are grieving and things like that. So that was one of the most coolest moments that I've ever experienced, that in regards to just being a young Marine, just starting off and getting an opportunity to do something like that. Once I got into training, was there doing Marine combat training. Marine combat training is kind of like preemptive, something in regards to like preparing you, setting you up if you had to go to war, and how would you train and how would you react. So when I did it, it was snowing, frigid, cold there in North Carolina, and I'm from Miami and I'm from Jamaica, so I've never seen a snow day in my life, man. So, so man, I'm there freezing my butt off, and we go through the training, sleeping in fire holes, sleeping together, and all these different things that we're just doing, different, executing different things, navigating, and learn how to use different weapons. The last day that we're there, we're hiking back 10 miles, and 5 miles in, it starts raining, it starts snowing, and we just start dropping like flies, man, as hypothermia hit most of us. And I end up in the hospital with hypothermia and frostbite, which delayed my training. And I thought I was gonna die, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" Like, I'm just being hit with different adversity every single step of the way as I'm going through. And following that, joined my unit there in Camp Lejeune, and I'm a amphibious assault vehicle section leader, which is those tanks that operate and land in water and carry the
Mm.
infantry on the inside. And following that, man, I served for 8 years. Within that 8 years, 9/11 hit, so I had to deal with 9/11. And once 9/11 hit, and my family started calling me, asking me, "Am I going to war? What's going on?" I'm hearing sirens on the base,
Right.
and hearing all these things. This is when it like really hit me, and when my family had the fear of me actually joining the military and going to war. Lo and behold, we waited some time after that. Then President Bush declared war, and I leave Japan and I head to California. And when I get to California, I get assigned to the third amphibious assault vehicle platoon. And while I'm there, we are training in 29 Palms, California, and then Captain Venning comes up to us and tells us, "Boys, it's time for us to go." And then we just start ramping up our training and just enhancing things, and things getting much more serious and much more locked in, much more dialed in.
Mm.
And from there, we leave from California to Seattle, from Seattle to Canada, from Canada to Germany, from Germany to Kuwait, and we take a long convoy into Fallujah, Iraq in 2004. And as soon as we get there in Fallujah, the first night that we get there, we hear incoming. And hearing this, man, we just seeing boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, holy shit, this shit is real. And I just keep having these moments of like, something just keeps on happening. I'm having these types of moments. And I'll never forget this, but the first sign that I saw when I got to Iraq was complacency kills. And that's something that has always stuck with me up to this day in my life, in my training, in my talks with things I do with my kids, you name it, is complacency kills. And it really taught me like always keep your head on a swivel, always be prepared and not trying to get prepared. And for us, we were well prepared when we got there in regards to that circumstance and that situation. And from there, man, it was just a wild ride for close to a year. I was there for 8, 9 months while I was there in Iraq. First mission that we go on, we're there providing security for another unit. We're not doing anything but providing security for close to 12 hours. And then in the middle of the night, it gets dark, all the lights go out, you can't see nothing. We're using NVGs to see. And all of a sudden, I get an RPG, shoots, and it lands right behind my tank. And when it lands, I'm like, holy shit. And we turn around our turret for our tanks, and we just start spraying 50 cals and Mark 19s, just shooting this building down. And we leveled this entire thing. And when we got back to the fob, me and my gunnery sergeant was just talking. And he was saying to me, like, "Man, I'm so glad that you were able to respond and we had each other's back." And this is what taught me in regards to like having your brothers six and protecting each other and making sure that we keeping each other safe so we all could come back home to the United States to our family safely. And it really gave me a true appreciation of like defending our country and things around that. Within that time space, we've been on plenty of different patrols, plenty of different missions, you name it. It's over 6,000 hours of operations, that military operations that we're doing, and close to over 100 military like operations that we're doing, every single day that we're there, just training or going out and actually like fighting people. I want to talk about the last patrol that we were on. And that last patrol that we were on, I'm now the section leader because my gunnery sergeant that I just mentioned injured his back. So he had to go back home. So I'm now leading our section and leading our troops. And I'm the first one in and experiencing every single thing, communicating with people that's there. And there's so much level of uncertainty that's tied to that, but you have to be brave enough. You have to be resilient enough. You have to be confident enough in regards to leading your troops. And me doing so, that first night we're there, we get into a firefight with these Iraqis that try to shoot at us. We end up firing back, talking with the eye in the sky, which are the drones. And then we captured these guys and turned them back in. The next day we come back out and we're there getting ready to deliver supplies to our unit, and they're set up in a 360 perimeter. So I have my driver that's driving, which is Lance Corporal Lowe. I have my assistant, Lance Corporal Castanelli, that's in the back. And we're going around and we're dropping off some ammunition, some MREs, and some water. We're going around and we get to the last vehicle, and the last vehicle was a Humvee, which had my gunnery sergeant, it had our doctor, it had the gunner, Hernandez, and then it had my best friend, Salto, which was the driver. We talk for a little bit and we pull off. And as soon as we pull off, Ari, I hear the loudest bomb, loudest explosion that I could ever hear in my life, man. And this was from a VBID, which is a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device. And this device goes off and it hits the Humvee that they were in. And the blast from this hit my tank, tilted it, slammed it back down. Shrapnel from this gashed me across the eye, injured my shoulder, injured my back, knocked me out. And Castanelli runs up and grabs me and pulls me back inside of the tank because my body was halfway up where it was just not completely exposed. And he wakes me up and he pulls me out. Once I come back to, we get out of the tank to go check on these guys because they're literally was right there next to me. And I see nothing but smoke, fire, dust. You could smell blood in the air. You could smell all of these things. And I see my gunnery sergeant, and he has blood running out of his ears. The doctor has lost his leg. Hernandez, half of his face is gone. And my best friend, Soto, his whole stomach, his whole body is on the steering wheel of this car. And at this moment, man, like, I'm not even worried about myself. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And seeing that, man, it really put things into perspective in regards to like serving and just going through something as traumatic as this. And how do you deal with this afterwards, man? And I say that because for me, once experiencing that, you know, I was 5 seconds away from that bomb, from that explosion. And I don't know what would have happened to me. In addition to that, I struggled with for a good bit of my life, you know, was the mere fact that I just drove past that car and I didn't see it. So I live with a lot of regret in regards thinking why I didn't see that and how I could have done something to have prevented that, man. And from there, man, you know, I had to really deal with that transition because, you know, you come from fighting a war and living on edge at a high adrenaline rate for so long, and then trying to come back to live a civilian life in regards to like going to the mall, cutting your grass, watching TV. It doesn't, nothing compares to on that high that you were on for so long. You know, so that transition for me was a little bit of a struggle in regards to when I got out, you know, so that's when I had to try to like navigate and try to figure things out in regards to like what I was going to do and trying to identify things that's tied to my purpose, man.
What was that first day that you're on civilian clothing? What did that feel like? What were the thoughts going through your head?
The thoughts going through my head was, how am I going to adapt? How am I going to transition? And who can I relate to in regards to my experiences? Because you come from a like-minded community where people are around you for 8 years of my life and they know what I talk, and we talk the same lingo, we speak the same, we kind of inherently somehow kind of like vibe off of each other. And to come back and try to share or relate with your spouse, your girlfriend, your kids, your next door neighbors, your boss, whoever, there's nothing that's close to matching that. And some of that same struggle for me that I was going through at that particular moment is what most veterans go through now during their transition as well too. So it puts you in a space of isolation. It puts you in a space of depression. It puts you in a space where you're now searching for something and trying to find something and feel like there's something missing.
What was the space that you ultimately found?
So, you know, I kept searching for things and looking for things, and it was always an empty void that was always there, you know. So I try to go into the space of employment and working and never really trying to stay busy. And I could never really find something that lived up to that. So I worked on a railroad for a little bit and just doing my thing. And I did very well professionally, but personally on the inside, I struggled in regards to when I came back home and dealing with things. So that was a big struggle for me. And it was not until I got called out to a suicide there when I was working as a supervisor, and someone jumped in front of a train and they got cut in half. And as soon as I got called out there and seen this, I got my crew off the train. We had to deal with the coroners, the police report, you name it. But immediately after that, that brought me directly back to my experience in Iraq. And that's when I started really struggling with my mental health and realized I really need to get help and really like address some of these things that I've been bottling in and keeping on the inside for such a very long time. And for me, just going through that process, that's when I said, let me just get some mental health treatment. For me, deciding to go get mental health treatment, I eventually lost my job because of me trying to go in and do that. which is totally fine now. But me going through that process brought me down the road of self-discovery and identifying who Michael is and trying to create that identity and identify my values, my purpose, reason and meaning for me to start living this life that I'm living now today.
That is such a I mean, I'm just struck with your humility and vulnerability. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you. It's incredibly difficult to be able to openly speak about, one's journey. So I just want to express my appreciation for you sharing your story with me and with our audience.
Absolutely, man.
You decided to become an author. I mean, that's a point where you're saying, look, I've gone through this. Now you're sharing this online, but you wrote a book.
I
When you
did.
asked yourself, well, how did that come to be?
So it's funny, I'm actually working on my second book right now, which will be released in April. But the first book that I released is called Overcoming Adversity, Getting Your Life Back on Track. And I'll give you the backstory to the release of that book when I put it out several years ago. Ari, so I'm someone that I'm from Jamaica. And if you know about Jamaica, it's a country that it's very poor and there's tons of things that goes on there that most people can't understand or can't relate to. So as a young kid, I went through a flood. My mom and dad lost everything. Following that, we had a hurricane. We lost everything. I come to America and I'm now this kid that don't speak American English, so I'm getting bullied. And then also I'm dealing with issues that someone abused me in the Boy Scouts, right? And I'm trying to deal with those things and trying to navigate those things. So those things put me in a bottle and kind of like in regards to trying to like really find my identity and really put myself in a space of knowing who is Michael and trying to figure things out. So an outlet for that was, actually joining the Marine Corps, which put me in a space where I felt wanted, I felt belonged, I felt valued in all of those things. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, those things went away again. So it kind of put me back in that bottle and put me back in that space. Fast forward, as I got out of the military, I share with you that story in regards to what happened on the railroad. But following that, man, I was going through a divorce at the time, and that divorce led to a child custody battle where I was in court for close to 3.5 years trying to fight for my son. And in between that, I went to go get remarried again, and I got remarried. And then somewhere in between that space, I was going through another divorce, got a DUI, and now I'm trying to deal with that. And then following that, I said, I don't know what's the point of living. I don't know what's the point of being here anymore. And I tried to take my life when I was living in Tampa, Florida. And in that moment, that's when things just started like coming out of me and just started pouring out of me in regards to like, this can't be my life. There has to be a change and there has to be something that needs to change. I found myself in Texas and I came across this guy at the Writers Guild, and his name was Stephen Belber. We're now good friends. And Stephen, he's written with Law and Order. He just put out a movie here on Netflix here recently. And I'm there in the room, and we're there trying to like write our stories and tell our stories. And I wrote chapter 1, and he looks at it and he says like, you need to like flesh this out a little bit more, get some more details, some more meats and potatoes to the story. So I did that. And then I write chapter 2. And I write chapter 2, and he looks at it and he says, this is really good. You're going somewhere here with this. And I got stuck and I couldn't write anymore. And what I told him and shared with him was that, I'm not at a space yet where I'm ready to be vulnerable and ready to be transparent to talk about some of the things that has occurred in my life. And I sat on my story, sat on my book for close to 6.5 years because I was not ready to share with the world some of the things that has occurred to me that I've experienced and some of the things that I was dealing with. And that's when I went on that path of like, let me work on Michael first. Let me fix Michael first, where I could take care of some of these things, address them, and feel confident enough where I could go out here and share my story and help other people too. And it was when I was running my construction company. Our company's doing well. And I was in the gym working out one day, and I'm a person of faith. And then I didn't feel any fulfillment in like making a lot of money running a construction company. And I was saying to myself, like, God, what is it that you want me to do? And the immediate thought that rushed over me was like, you need to share your story and you need to start helping people and go out here and edify people and empower people. And in that moment, I went through the process of, does all this stuff make sense? Right? Am I just like hearing things or does this make sense? And going through that, man, I contacted the franchise owner and said, hey, it's been a great ride. I had a lot of fun, but I'm going to sell my franchise. And that was a very tough conversation. But
Cold
eventually,
turkey.
yeah,
Wow.
eventually I sold the franchise back. And from there, I went on the path of like, let's write this book. And I wrote this book in 3 months, and writing this book and getting it to print, getting it to publish it, having a big launch party and all of these different things. The book did phenomenal. And from the book, man, I realized it was like a healing. It was like a therapy for me in regards to like getting my story out. And when I did the launch, I was so amazed of the people that read the book and was
Mm.
coming up to me asking me questions like, how did you get through this? How did you get past this? Can you tell me more about this? Can you tell me more about that? I thought I put everything in the book and I could give so much more from the book. And when people started asking me so many different things, and from there, man, I was so amazed and filled with so much like humility and gratitude and just so thankful that this book, as much as it was therapy for me, it was therapy for people because I never met so many men that have probably experienced some of the same things that I've been through, but was so ashamed to talk about it. I've never met so many moms or women that have been through some of the things that I've dealt with, or so many veterans that have gone through some of the same things that I've been through that they don't talk about. And those are two things that are near and dear to me is like kids that are either being abused or veterans that are going through mental health issues, homeless, and so many other things. And to address some of those things and to show as an example that if I've been through all of these things, then you can get through some of these same things too as well. And from putting that book out, man, that's what has led to me getting to do TED Talks, being a keynote speaker, doing all the trainings that I'm doing. And that has not stopped since because I see how much of an impact I'm making to help other people throughout this world, man.
Tell me about that impact. What are the things that you kind of people learn from you and then they try to employ it in their own life? What are the stories that you hear back?
Wow, man. All right. So there's so many stories I could share, man. I recently spoke in November and I came across a veteran that tried to take his own life. And hearing his story, he was telling me that I was just like you, man. And to hear your story let me know that, you know what, I did the right thing. I'm on the right
Mm.
path. I was one that served in Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, some of these occurred. I lost my best friend. He was telling me, like, yo, your story is my story. And to hear that you made that transition and you didn't take your life and you do some of these things, it really solidified my story and my past. Another story that I could share with you as well too was during one of my talks, I talked about my experience with my wife and
Mm.
how we went through a marriage, we went through divorce, we went back through counseling, we went back through all of these different things to put our family back together because we knew that foundation was extremely important. So in one of my talks, I talk about that process and let you know that like you can actually get remarried if you've been through a divorce. And we had a young lady come up to us and started talking to me about her relationship and about her husband, and her husband was a veteran,
Mm.
and how he was dealing with some of these things and he tried to commit suicide. And I invited them to go out to dinner with us, and we had dinner with them, and we just started talking about some of the things that they were going through and what I did to go into more details. I only get 1 hour to talk on stage sometimes, so we went out to dinner. We talked a little bit more about how you could implement and do some different things in your
Mm.
relationship in regards to that. Following that, several years prior to that, I came across a young lady that was abused as a kid. And she got into a marriage and got into the marriage, and the abuse continued. And she was struggling with that and dealing with that. And we had to talk through that process. I had to bring in my clinicians and bring in my team to help with that process, to help her navigate through some of those things. And now she's on the road to breakthrough and she's doing some amazing things in her life, man. But those are the three examples that, I wanted to share with you, man, in regards to like the impact of me just sharing my story and be vulnerable and transparent, which was something that I was struggling with 6 years ago.
I mean, it's crazy, right? we see social media and we're kind of online, and people are being assholes to each other,
Right.
and nobody's really thinking like there's a person behind this, there's a story here, there's pain, there's it's just like there's so much more to people that we can't get to through this virtual world, which is it's kind of incredible. You talk about the unleadership. What does that mean?
Yeah, the unleadership for me was, what are some untraditional ways that you could make leadership an example? And
Mm,
that came from when I served and I learned about leadership. I was always under the impression that leadership was always at the top level and no one else dealt with leadership. And it was always from the aspect of like, I can't do nothing and I'm not empowered to do anything. And if I'm just a new employee or if I'm just a little kid or something like that, I have no leadership skills, no leadership capabilities. And it is so not true. And that's where the leadership comes in regards to how can we unlock the mindset in regards to like every single person is a leader through and through, no matter where you're at in your company, in your organization, in life, every single person is a leader. And that came from me identifying a particular person, and I really want to shout him out because this person, his name is, now they promoted him to Corporal Puckett, but at the time when I knew him, he was Lance Corporal Puckett, and we were in Iraq. He was not in my platoon, but he was in our company for when we went to Iraq, and he was a Lance Corporal. And I told you about my assistant. He was Lance Corporal Castanelli that was in the back of my vehicle that was pulling me down and taking care of me to make sure that I was okay. Puckett was in the same position as him. When they were in Iraq, Puckett's gunner was in a shootout and they got ambushed. His gunner was shooting and he got shot and he got killed. Puckett grabbed him, pulled him down, and made sure he took care of him. There was another person on his tank that was getting shot up. Puckett went up through the fire. They were shooting at him, and he grabbed them and saved their lives. And when I thought about that, if he would to keep that mindset that I'm a nobody, I'm just a lance corporal, I have no position of power, he would have let them die. But he risked his life. He risked every single thing to get Combs down. He risked their lives to get his driver down and go and save people's lives. He's now honored with so many medals and things like that for what he did. Puckett came back and he survived that as the rest of the unit came and got him out. Puckett was so determined that he loved being a Marine and loved serving that he came back and they had put him on administrative duties because of what occurred to him. And he went back out, and Puckett went back out to fight. And the next time that he went out to fight, he got killed. And when I thought about Puckett, the bravery that was within him to step up his leadership skills and to show that there was so much power within us as leaders that you don't have to wait to be the CEO or the executive of any company. And that's where the unleadership comes in regards to empowering different people at different levels within a company, within an organization, that leadership skills can be employed at any different level. So from the frontline supervisors, which is what our training does, from the middle management supervisors, you get to be a leadership. And also from the senior executives, you get the opportunity to be a leader too as well. So it's all about those through and through to where there's transparency from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top too as well.
is this I'm going to go a little bit on a fishing expedition here. Is this the antidote to victimism?
It is. I think that we need to get out of the mindset of that, as in like not fall into the victim or the cowering to that. I believe that we could all empower people and entrust people with things, right? You don't have to feel like everything is all for myself, and you don't have to feel like everything is all my fault. When you have the opportunity to empower people and change people's lives, that is the authority that is given to you to do something like that. And I feel also, in addition to that, that we have to start recognizing and identifying that we don't have to be a victim to anything. Just change our mindset, change our perspective, change how we look at things, and really take action from doing some of those things with being intentional.
What's the How does somebody make that change that, and this can be true in a million different ways, but
Mm-hmm.
bad things happen to you, To a certain degree, the system is rigged, right? How do you change that mindset of I have no control, I'm a victim, to, there are the things that I can change, there are the things that I can't change, and the things that I can't change, fuck them. And the thing that I can change, I'm gonna go get it. How do you even do that? That's such a huge shift, but I would argue such a necessary one today.
It is, something that I talk about. I'm gonna share two things with you. So when I get on the stage, and within my next book that I'm getting ready to put out, we talk about decisions, direction, and the destination. And when you start identifying those three things, you gain so much clarity. You gain so much alignment in identifying where you need to be at and things that you need to do, and removing certain things out of your life that don't need to be there. Then if I was to take that to another level, is you need to start recognizing what are some of the challenges that you're facing and how you need to address some of those things. The next thing that I'm going to share with you is also, I've learned this through the NLP practices, but how do you start reframing things? We start framing things inside of our heads, and we start telling ourselves lies that turns to be truth, and they're really not. So how can we start reframing things and really digesting some of those things and see if there's any fact to any of those things? Because I was someone that was in that space that carried so much things from my past, so many things, so many guilt, so much shame, so many things that someone have said over me, prophesied over me, and I thought it was true and started believing it too as well. So let's start reframing some of those things. And the last thing is, how do you respond? You get a choice. You get an opportunity to respond. So it's your action, not your inaction, but it's your action, how you respond. So you could choose not to do anything, or you can choose to take action and actually get a little bit comfortable, step out of your comfort zone, and keep challenging yourself to get 1% better every single day.
We've got to unpack that. There is so much in what you just said, which is, there is also a lot of science that promotes what you just said. So a few of the things is framing, the social psychology around how you frame an event, a situation, a scenario. The other thing is the Pygmalion effect, right? What you
Right.
believe, how you react, what your intentions are can actually create a snowball effect moving forward. I mean, there is so much about what you said. Let's break that down. Is there a simple way or a simple example that you can kind of concrete that process that you just walked us through, which I think is incredible. We just don't have enough time to really go through it slowly. Give us something really simple that we can kind of get it.
I'm gonna share this with you as well then. So whenever you get faced with a challenge, look at it from ACT, and it's act, acknowledge, acknowledge the belief. Start looking at it. Let's start breaking it down. What is it? Write it down. What is it that I'm just telling myself? And you'll realize your brain. So here's the thing: 78% of our thoughts are primarily negative, right? So most of the times we're processing negative thoughts and negative things in our mind. So we have to really start digesting, acknowledging, like, am I really saying this? Do I really believe these things? And then the C part is like, let's challenge this. Is this true? Right? Is there any evidence to any of these things, and identify, is it really true? And you need to identify them, so like yes, no, and understand that and make sure that we're breaking it down. Then the last part is the T part, right? So how could we transform into some like positive affirmation? How could we transform into like being much more with gratitude, right? How could we start doing some of these things to unlocking that? And when you start processing and changing some of these things that you're telling inside of your head, if you believe it or not, your ears, your mouth, all of these sensory things that you have is telling it, and you have the opportunity to transform your mind. You have the opportunity to transform all of these things inside of your head, because it's your brain is so much of a sponge that it absorbs every single thing that you're telling and saying through it. So you have the same opportunity to start telling it positive things, the right things, the correct things, in regards to some of those negative things that was already there before.
This is incredibly, incredibly important. I just want to highlight the fact that you write it down on a piece of paper is incredibly important. Taking it from your brain onto a paper and then doing that challenge, you're challenging your own beliefs. What are the pros and cons? Why might this be true? Why might this be untrue? Having both sides of that and having it on the paper is a key important process here.
it,
So
it gives
I
you
just
so
wanted
much
to highlight that.
confidence, man. It just gives you so much more confidence in regards to like really like believing in yourself and what's tied around that. Because when you empower yourself and you gain so much clarity, right? You gain so much of more of an identity to yourself, because what's tied around that is that you've had a previous identity of what somebody gave you. You had a previous identity of what you was believing. But really, was it an identity from your friend? Was it an identity from your mom, your dad, a coworker, your boss, or any of those things? That's when you got to really dissect some of those things. Who really said that?
Yeah.
Do you really believe what they said about you and those things? That's when you can really dive into it from writing it down as well.
We have a slogan which we've kind of stole, which is life consists of three things: the stories we tell, the
Mm-hmm.
stories others tell about us, and the stories that we tell ourselves. And we're really talking about these stories that we're telling ourselves. And we can reframe those stories. We can retell them. We can respond to the stories that others tell. And it makes a huge difference. Michael, what an absolute delight. I don't know how we keep getting back to social psychology on this show. I guess it must be a me, I must attract it to me somehow, but this is really powerful stuff. I highly, advise people to go and research on the science and the stories behind this, but also go talk to you, Michael, and learn more about what you're doing. We have only one scripted question on the show. It's the only one that I know I'm going to ask, but it's a difficult one, but that should be no challenge for you. If you had to go back to 20-something-year-old Michael, what would you advise him?
If I was to go back to Michael back then, I would tell Michael to act. I would tell Michael to make a decision. I would tell Michael to go into that direction. Whenever I close out any of my talks or any of my speeches, you know, am I living that life that I dreamt of as a kid? Am I living that life that I wanted to do? Or was I living somebody else's life? And if you're going to have that life of regrets, if you're going to have that life where all of your stories and all of your things die with you in a graveyard and you don't get the chance to share any of those things, how sad would that be? How sad would that be? So, what I would tell Michael is act now, live that life that you desire to be, because believe it or not, you have so much of an abundant life that's out here for you that anyone
Yes.
can get so many things that if they truly desire it, and it's right here in the palm of your hands just for you to get it. So that's what I would tell Michael, is just to act and make a decision right now.
Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are an absolute delight, and we definitely have to have you back.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.